Hi, I'm Rick with Bestop, and today I'm going to walk you through the installation of the Supertop Ultra for your 2007 to 2018 JK Wrangler Unlimited. To start the installation, you're going to have to remove the hardtop if you had one installed, but the only thing you have to do to prepare the vehicle is open up the sport bar here at the back. Look for this bolt right here and remove it with a 13mm socket. Don't forget to do that on both sides. Save this bolt for later. You'll need it to reattach the guide track. What we've got laid out in front of you here is all of the parts that come in the kit to complete the installation, including the installation instructions, which include the list of tools that you'll need. We'll go over those as we're doing the installation. And it might look like a lot, but I promise, with the help of a friend, you'll get this done in no time. These are the door rails for the right and left rear, right and left front. Side bow assemblies come pre-assembled to make it easier for you to install. All of the fasteners and the hardware kits, tailgate clips and brackets, guide rail tracks, bows, lift assist, and tailgate bar. And just to make it easy, we've got some labels on these parts with part numbers that you can refer back to the installation instruction so you can tell which is which. For this step, we're going to install the guide tracks onto the door rails. This is a real easy step. You use the M5 screws with a T25 Torx. They go into 4 locations, and the rails have nuts already pre-installed to make that easy for you. You might want to just get all these started and then come back and tighten them all at the end. All right, one down. The guide track lines up with the brackets and the nuts along with the door rail pre-drilled holes. Just set that inside and line everything up, and then you can start the screws. After you've installed the guide track on the door rail here, we're going to move to the vehicle and we're going to pre-position them onto the Jeep. I'm on the left side. We have the left rail. There's a small pin that goes into a hole on the belt rail. And then at the top, there's a section that goes around the sport bar. After you get the door rail lined up, make sure you check the seal at the front so that it's not pinched or caught underneath. Just put that in position and then do the front. To put the front door rail on, the C shape goes towards the front and it goes over the top of the rear at the B pillar. After you get the door rail in position, check the seals at the front and back and make sure that they're not pinched or caught underneath there. To secure the door rails to the Jeep, you're going to use 2 long M8 bolts and 1 M830. Those use a T40 Torx and a 5mm Allen. The 2 long ones go at the front and rear, and the short bolt goes in the middle. Make sure you repeat those steps on both sides of the Jeep. To secure the bracket at the rear of the guide track, we're going to reinstall the bolt that we removed earlier. But before we do that, we need to cut a small slit in the sport bar pad to fit over it. You can see this top has a slit from another soft top, and we're going to do the same thing on this side. And we zip this back up. And don't forget to do that on the other side of the Jeep. To install the main pivot brackets, we're going to use two M6 screws, and the brackets have a round hole in a slot. The round hole always goes up in the vehicle, and the tabs are going to go to the inside. Find the flap on the sport bar cover that lets you access the holes that are pre-drilled into the sport bar and install it using a T30 Torx. Make sure you repeat those steps on both sides of the Jeep. To install the lift assist assembly, you're going to want to put the cover to the inside with the studs facing to the outboard. There'll be two on the bottom, one on the top, and they align to the holes that are in the brackets we just put on. You attach those using a nut. Tighten these up using a 10mm socket, but don't over tighten them, 7 foot-pounds. After you do all of that, repeat on the other side. After installing the lift assist, we're going to put this rear bow on. It's the number 6 bow. Put that in position on the rear. There's a pivot knuckle that goes onto the bracket, and then we're going to secure that with a screw. We're going to attach that number 6 bow using these pivot screws, using a T30 Torx. Make sure that the bracket with the bump stop is facing up when you put that screw in using a T30 Torx. Don't forget to repeat that on both sides. As we get ready to attach the side bow to the guide track, I want to point out a few things. There's a few gas struts. Those are going to be facing to the rear. There's a guide roller that's going to go into the track that's on the outside of the vehicle, and 3 tabs that go towards the inside. So you put that wheel into the track and you just lift it up into position as you get ready to complete the installation. Unlock the lift assist and rotate it back a little bit to help align the holes to make it easier to install the side bow. To install the side bow to the rear bow, we're going to use the shoulder bolt, a thick bushing, and a thin bushing. The round hole at the rear gets the thin bushing goes to the inside, the thick bushing on the outside, and the shoulder bolt goes through and attaches to the nut on the lift assist. So the thin bushing goes to the inside, thick bushing to the outside, and the shoulder bolt goes through, attaching to the nut on the lift assist. It's a 10mm socket. Repeat those steps on the other side of the Jeep. Our next step is going to be installing the bows onto the Jeep. Now, if you got a little excited and maybe you took all the stickers off with the part numbers, I just wanted to point out that they're all just a little bit different in length. Some of them have extra holes. The 5 bow is the shortest one with the extra holes, 2 large ones, 2 small ones on the ends. To install the number 5 bow, that has the 2 small holes on the outside and the 2 larger holes. Those 2 holes face the front of the vehicle, so you align that at the rear and you use the screws through the holes into the nuts on the bracket. These are 30mm T25 Torx screws. They look just like some other ones that are in the kit. There are only 4 of these and they go on the rear bow. Once you've got these tight, repeat that on the other side. Alright. To put the stay strap assembly on, you're going to use the 2 Phillips screws. They go through holes that are pre-drilled on the end of the stay strap. Both ends have the holes, so it doesn't matter which one you use. If you start those in there, then you're going to align them to holes on the outside of the bow. It's a lot easier to do if you can get this out of the way by folding it to the front of the car. And it's designed with these gas struts to hold up all that weight, so you might need to pull a little harder to get it all the way down. So start the screws in the holes and then tighten them down. It might help to release that lock so you can lift this rear bow up while you do that. We're going to repeat that same step on the number 6 bow. The screws go through the stay strap and into the holes that are pre-drilled on the bow. It's going to make it easier if you release that lock and let this rear bow forward so you can line everything up. Make sure you get both sides of the Jeep. Our next step is going to be installing the number 4 and the number 3 bow. We're going to start at the back and move to the front. The 4 bow is a little bit longer and it's going to go on the rear side of this tab, and the 3 bow, the shorter one, is going to go on the front side of this tab. These bows are installed using a T25 Torx and 25mm screws. Don't forget to repeat that on both sides. Attach the number 3 bow the same way, but make sure it goes in front of the tab. Make sure you get both sides of that bow. The number 2 bow is the last one of these you've got left to put on. It's a little straighter because it doesn't have the curve on the ends, but it still has a bow. You want to make sure that that bow is facing up, and then it mounts to the front bracket where we put these side bows down to make it a little easier to reach, and then it's going to go using the same 25mm long screws. Don't forget to get both sides of that bow. The last step on the hardware assembly before we get to the fabric is to install these rubber grommets into the rear bow. These are going to act as a receptacle for the stiffener on the soft top. We recommend you use some glue inside the channel on the grommet when you put it in to make sure it stays in place. To prepare for the fabric installation, you can see we've laid the deck out on the hood here. It's upside down, and I've got this one bow pulled back a little bit to see these 2 screws on the outboard side. We're going to take both of those out on each side so that we can prepare to install it onto the side bows. Save these screws because you'll reuse them later. Don't forget to repeat that on both sides. Now we're ready to move the fabric assembly onto the top of the Jeep. It's really helpful for you to have a friend complete this step, but we grab that number 1 bow and we move it right up on top of the windshield, kind of in its home position. To assemble the side bow, you want to pull it down, but be real careful. You don't want to pinch yourself. And then you're going to slide this front portion of the side bow into the outboard end of the header, or the number 1 bow. Make sure you do that on both sides. Using some 1/2-inch Phillips screws, we're going to start into the side bow through the header on these 2 outboard holes. Don't tighten anything up just yet until we get to the next steps. Repeat those steps on the other side of the Jeep. Now we're going to go ahead and pull the deck back over on top of the Jeep. Having a friend helps out with this step too. Now we're going to attach the side bow to the underside of the number 1 bow header. The Phillips screws go into the round recess, and you might have to shuffle things around a little bit to get the holes to line up. But once you do get those started, go ahead and tighten all of those screws down. So after you get these, go ahead and tighten down the ones on top that we had started just before. And then repeat that on both sides. Now we're going to reattach the flap with the screws we took out earlier. Make sure you have that metal stamping from the cable in there, and then you put it right into those 2 holes that it came out from when you disassembled it. Finish up this part of the assembly, we're going to put the seals on. You can tell the right and left seals because the round notch goes towards the bow and the small notch goes towards the outside. And the last seal goes right across the leading edge. And do that on both sides. Now I've got myself in position to attach the rear flap to the rear bow. It's going to be a lot easier if you kind of climb in the back. You reach up, there's a fabric flap with a plastic strip. You kind of roll that around the bow, and there's 9 screws to put in to secure the fabric. So you can see here where I've started the 9 screws through the fabric and the plastic retainer. They're going to align to the holes in the rear bow. Start with the center one and then work your way out on both sides. After we've attached the rear bow flap, there's a small strap on the outside that's going to attach with one of those screws. We attach the stay strap on. So you take and remove that outboard one that you'd previously put in. And then go ahead and put it right back. After you do all of that, repeat on the other side. Our next step is going to be attaching the spring that holds the cable tight on the top to the rear bow. There's a small little gap. It slides right around and into the hole. To secure it, we recommend some vice grips because you can adjust the tension. You don't want to over crimp this, so this way you can crimp it down to make sure it's nice and tight and it's not coming out. And if you want to, you can just adjust it a tiny little bit and do small little increments so you don't cause any damage. Don't forget to repeat that on both sides. Now we're going to install the fabric on the 2, 3, and 4 bow. But before we do that, we need to make sure that this rear bow is locked in position. It's been loose up to this point to make it easier to install. To do that, I'm going to fold the whole top down, and when we put it back up, you listen and hear it click into place. After we get that in position, we're going to go ahead and put the 1 bow header back and close it down onto the windshield. Watch your fingers, don't get pinched. To secure the 1 bow header to the windshield, open the latch all the way up, fold the hook down onto the footman loop, and then close to secure. Repeat that on the other side. Now we're going to go ahead and put the bow flap on around the bow. It's got hook on one side and loop on the other, and they just overlap each other. Work from the center to the outside. You repeat the same steps for securing the flap on the 3 bow. It's really hard to see because it's right over the sound bar here, but it closes in the exact same way. So I've moved into the back seat to get the number 4 bow. After the 4 bow, do the same thing for the 5 bow. Start in the center and work outside. Now we're going to put the quarter windows in, and to do that, you're going to want to flip the top up to expose the retainer on the outside here that goes inside the retainer on the quarter window. And slide that towards the front. Make sure you repeat those steps on both sides of the Jeep. To secure the retainer at the front of the quarter window, you're going to rotate that edge into the slot that's on the leading edge here of the door rail. There's a long plastic retainer at the bottom of the quarter window. Just tuck that under the belt rail on the Jeep for the first few inches. At the back of the quarter window on the top, there's a pin that gets inserted into the grommet that we installed previously on the rear bow. Make sure you get both sides of the Jeep. To install the tailgate bar clip, make sure you get the right one. The outside has the little tab on it and the snap to the outboard side. To install it, you just clip it from behind and pull forward into position. At the bottom, on the back of the quarter window, is a small strap with a snap that snaps right onto the tailgate clip. To finish putting the quarter window in, we're going to tuck the rest of the retainers into the belt rail. Now we're ready to install the rear window. We're going to put the retainer at the top of the window onto the retainer on the deck. You can see we've got it lifted up out of the way to make it easy to align. Go ahead and just slide that on and center it. We're going to start the zipper on both sides. Get the pin into the slider and then come down just a few inches. To install the tailgate bar onto the rear window, you need to make sure that that tailgate bar, the seal, is going to be on the bottom and facing to the rear. There's a small channel that slides onto a retainer in the rear window. You get that started and it slides across very easy. To finish installing the tailgate bar, we're going to roll it so that the bar fits into the clip. Zip the window closed, tuck the retainer under, and close the flap on the hook and loop. And then repeat that on both sides. To finish the installation, we're going to go ahead and pull the corner down and attach all the hook and loop. Once everything's installed, you should have a nice smooth appearance here where the cable drops into the channel on the door surround. If you open your top up and this isn't in the right spot and this gets hung up on the inside like this, you're going to want to make sure you pull it back out so that you don't get any water leaking in if you're in a rainstorm. Thanks for joining me today on the installation of the Supertop Ultra for the JK Wrangler Unlimited. If you have any trouble at all, contact us at bestop.com or call our customer service number, and we'll see you out on the trail.